ADAURA trial that was presented in the plenary session at ASCO was a phase 3 randomized trial that looked at adjuvant therapy with osimertinib, a third-generation EGFR inhibitor, versus placebo. The reason placebo was used is because there is no standard of care after surgery and appropriate chemotherapy in patients with resected stage 1, 2, and 3 lung cancer. This was a worldwide trial. Patients were enrolled and they had a complete surgical resection of their disease, and then they received platinum therapy as indicated. A few of the patients with stage 1 had platinum, most of the patients with stage 2 and 3, and then they were randomized to osimertinib for a planned 3-year duration, orally once a day, versus placebo. And placebo being used because there is no standard of care, at least up until now, in this setting. And then the patients were followed for disease-free survival, the primary endpoint. Patients were stratified by the country, Asia versus non-Asia, I guess I should say region. About 2/3 of the patients were from Asia, by the type of EGFR mutation, whether it was L858R or exon 19 deletion, and by stage. And the patients basically were followed, and the first result was presented at the ASCO meeting. I actually was surprised to be presenting this year because we did not expect these data to read out for another year or maybe 2. However, at a planned safety analysis, the Data Safety Monitoring Committee, looking at the data, saw that there was a great imbalance in terms of efficacy, which is unusual for a safety committee to stop a study for being so positive when it wasn't a planned interim analysis. However, the results speak for themselves. The study was unblinded, and the results are now out there. Now, what are the results? So in patients in the primary study group, which was stage 2 and 3 disease, 2/3 of the patients, that was the primary endpoint, disease-free survival, the hazard ratio was 0.17. You have 83% improvement in disease survival in the patients who got the osimertinib versus placebo. At 2 years, 90% disease-free versus 44% disease-free. Just an incredible result. You know, we expected this would be positive. We had targeted 0.7 as our hazard ratio. I would have been happy as an investigator and a clinician who uses this at 0.6, maybe even 0.5 or 4, but 0.17 was just, you know, an amazing result. And then when you add in the stage 1 patients, the stage 1 patients will have a much better prognosis just because it's much earlier disease. The hazard ratio went up only slightly, 0.21. So still a 79% improvement in disease-free survival, highly statistically significant. So on both of these, the primary and the secondary analysis, this trial really hit it out of the park. So very exciting results, and I'm glad we could share these at ASCO. Now, a couple of other things that one would ask, what about different subgroups? So in a trial like this, you would do a forest plot, you would look at different subgroups: age, sex, race, type of EGFR mutation, stage of disease, and you might even look at whether or not they got chemotherapy. That's an important one. And in every case, the benefit favored the osimertinib versus placebo. It hit every one of those marks. So that was very important. The drug was well tolerated. There were very few grade 3 or 4 side effects. No patients died on the study arm on the osimertinib. There were grade 3, 4 effects, rash, diarrhea in the 1 to 2% range. There were slightly more grade 1, 2 diarrhea, rash, and other toxicities you see with EGFR inhibitors on the patients who got the study drug, as has been expected and would be expected based on the FLORA data and the other studies of people looking at this drug. Importantly, there were no severe cases of interstitial lung disease. There were 10 cases of interstitial lung disease in the treatment arm, all low grade. So well tolerated, suggesting the drug could be given for the planned period of time. So really very exciting. This is the first presentation of these data. Of course, everyone's going to be waiting for more explanation of how did patients recur. Was it distant? Was it local? If it was local, what are the sites of recurrence? You would think the brain would be a site that would benefit from osimertinib with its high CNS penetration. Liver, lung, bone, all that will be looked at. Secondary therapies, what are the therapies the patients get after their first therapy? That will be looked at. Quality of life. All these things are being planned, and of course, ultimately survival. So this trial's so early. There's no survival benefit at this time. That will be looked at in the future.